নিউজ 18 বাংলায় অর্থমন্ত্রী নির্মলা সীতারামন এডিটর ইন চিফ রাহুল জোশের মুখোমুখি। বাজেট বরাদ্দ দিয়ে সবকা সাথ সবকা বিকাশ। গতকাল বাজেট পেশ নির্মলা সীতারামনের।
Nirmala ji, thank you so much for giving us the first exclusive interview after the budget. You know, if you look at the reactions of the budget, some people have called it a status quoist budget. People have called it a conservative, cautious budget. How do you react to this, people saying no bold reforms this time? Of course, much is there in the fine print and it is all coming out. The markets have, come back today from a low tomorrow. So what was weighing on your mind when you were preparing this budget?
It is the global uncertainties, which of course always every government has faced global uncertainties of different order, different level. But now the extent to which global uncertainties are bearing on countries and impacting decision making is of an order that we have never seen before. So certainly we had to keep that uncertainty in mind and plan for what is going to happen this year and what is going to commence in the next 5 years from this year. So it was for us to, keeping in mind the global uncertainties, plan for 1, for this year, 2, for the entire finance commission cycle, and 3, leading up to Vikasit Bharat, how do we want to take them? It is the stability point that I want to underline. So we are clearly projecting India as a place where businesses can be done, and the large Indian consumer market will have to find its own higher levels of achievements, so opportunities for them. And one last point here, budget and aside from budget, reforms continue. We have done several reforms, not through the budget.
Yes.
But yet outside of it through the year. Yes. That is why the expression reform express, it is continuing to move and move at a good pace.
What would you consider as some of the signature highlights of this budget?
The customs overall, some of which several of them have been mentioned in this budget, but there are several which couldn't be mentioned for want of time, and also the fact that there are few more which will carry on further. So the complete overall of customs is a major signature, and of course as a reform that. But looking at the frontier areas, investing in them, promoting R&D.
So you're projecting a nominal GDP growth of 10%. What is your outlook for inflation and your estimate for the real GDP in 26-27?
I'm very sure that inflation will remain within the tolerance band, and therefore inflation doesn't have to worry us much.
What is feasible for India considering that the nominal GDP has been on a decline since FY22? So where do you see the nominal GDP going in the next couple of years?
I strongly believe once the fund flows come in, because all of the factors are strong, all of the factors have really been the strength of India. So your macroeconomic is, 2 days ago we had this news report saying foreign exchange reserves have touched and crossed 700 billion.
Yes.
So you have every indicator doing well. So what is that one thing which can make a difference? That one factor which can make a difference, and this is common knowledge, is if there is more funds flowing into India, that itself will give us a big relief. And for that, those who went out also went out booking profits.
Right.
So India will have to draw a lot more funds for investments in India.
An interesting thing that I noticed, World of Statistics says that China contributes 26% of GDP growth in the world, global GDP growth. India contributes 17%. Right? So overall put together we are 43%. US has done a mere 9.9%. Elon Musk had an observation here. He said that the balance of power is shifting. Would you agree with that? And how soon can we close the gap with China?
It is the truth that China and India together contribute so much. That's a fact. For India to aspire to bridge the gap yes, we have to work very hard. And that is where my trust and faith is. When the government is stable and when forward-looking policies are encouraged, we can still achieve it.
You know, the one thing that you did this time, which has become a subject of conversation, the markets also reacted, was increasing STT in the derivatives segment. And I've heard the comments by your secretaries who say that it was to curb rampant speculation. Could it have been done differently, by managing margins or contract sizes? And was it a prudent thing to do at a time when, the global sentiment is the way it is and the markets are also on a weak footing? How do you react to this?
The Revenue Secretary made it absolutely clear. It is not for revenue considerations that we've done this.
Yes.
It is not on all STTs.
Yes.
We are only touching on futures and options.
Yes.
So it is the speculative tendencies. And in fact, the Ministry of Finance has received several parents, elders who call us and say, are you going to sit and watch people lose money? And one of the studies showed that 90% of people who've gone into futures and options have lost money. So we've only tried bringing in a deterrent where speculation is rife. We are not touching the market. Other STTs are not being touched.
Whether it is long-term capital gains or short-term capital gains, in the last few years they have only inched up. When, most of the other taxes have really gone down. So how do you, I'm asking you from a broader perspective, as the finance minister, how do you see this pan out over the years?
I don't agree with you when you say it's inched up. Yes, it has gone up or it is rationalized so that all asset classes can be treated equally.
Right.
And that's the logic and reasoning behind that particular rate change.
Right.
It wasn't done with an intent of earning out of it. But the disparity and the differential couldn't be sustained. So we had to rationalize it. And in fact, after that, we even gave that option to say, you choose which one you want to have.
So you think that the current rates are comfortable and...
The stable approach towards tax incidence or keeping tax incidence stable,
yes, has
always guided us.
The other overhang for the markets has been this, US tariffs. Let me ask you a direct question. I feel that, there is a sense of things thawing between the two countries. Are we close to a deal?
That's not so much for me to speculate on. Let us see.
But you do think that things are improving from both the sides?
The FTAs are being signed. European Union, UK, Australia, New Zealand. So work is going on in getting FTAs done.
That RBI has reduced benchmark repo rates by about 125 basis points since 2025. But the 10-year bond yields has increased, which means high borrowing costs. How do we tackle this? How do we reduce the cost of borrowing?
It is dependent on so many different factors. Yes, crowding in is one of the things on which the market gets heated up and yields can go up. But it's a fact that given the levels of developmental activities which all of us want to ramp up, both central government and state governments, going to the market is one way of raising your fund. But the yields going up also pushes back, and therefore people who want to look at better timing go back without raising the funds. So there is this concern, and that itself could be a deterrent for many states because they cannot afford it.
Yes. So
it's a very evolving situation. We'll have to see how it goes.
Finance Minister, your party has always stood for a strong rupee. But if you look at the Indian rupee in the last 1 year, it's been on a losing streak. It's almost lost 10% against the dollar, around 16% against the euro. Are you comfortable with this level of the rupee, and are you happy with the steps that the RBI is taking to maintain it?
Economy suffering from high inflation, economy being fragile, and your rupee value also not in a good position, makes it really hard and difficult for everybody. But one thing I can clearly say, is economy is fine and fit.
Yes.
Your macroeconomic fundamentals are strong. And that's not to say, look, therefore are you being indifferent to rupee-dollar exchange rate? I'm not indifferent. But I'll also look at it from the realistic challenges that we have to understand where rupee is finding itself now. Reserve Bank is closely monitoring.
India's holding of US Treasury bonds have declined about 25% compared to the peak of 2023. At the same time, Reserve Bank of India has increased its holdings on gold. Do you see this trend continuing?
I think many central banks, not just Reserve Bank of India, are pitching to buy more gold, and India seems to be following the trend.
Gold is up by about 80%, silver by 250%. How do you see this in the last 1 year, this phenomenon?
The uncertainties in the world are making people to fall back on, let's say, time-proven asset, which is gold. And that's bound to be because it is beyond anyone's fair assessment to see where things will move, and therefore the demand for gold.
One more interesting question I have, that you'd announced 7 new high-speed rail corridors in your budget. Again, a little more details. What are the time frame that you are looking at? How will you go about it?
It's so much left to the rail ministry, but the fact that they've done the ground necessary study and the route plan and everything else, and they were absolutely clear that budgetary announcement will make them, sit up and deliver it. They are definitely going to be delivered at the earliest, because these are dependent on India's technologies, Indian coaches, and so on. So the rail ministry will get into the details of it.
India's trade deficit with China is greater than about $116 billion in 2025. Even though the exports have also gone up, how do you tackle this issue?
That is where I think we are very clear in Atmanirbhar Bharat. We need to have capacities built in India for those essential goods that we import, and make sure that we are able to make it in India for Indian market. Even as I say this, we have not restricted the imports of some of the critical machines or equipments, because there are some precision tools which you so need when you're going to set up a particular type of factory. We need those to come in here. But at the same time, capacities in India will have to be expanded, ramped up sooner, so that our dependencies can come down. But this story is one side of the coin.
Right.
The other side of the coin is market access in China. I was Commerce Minister, and I know in my time also we've been asking for greater market access for Indian goods.
Right, in China.
That is moving very slowly.
This budget has also given a big fillip to AI, and I would like you to spend a little time trying to help our viewers understand the rationale behind it. The Eco Survey does point out to an AI bubble building up in valuations. So in that backdrop, what are we planning to do? How do we take this forward?
The government's interest in bringing AI is to improve productivity. AI now has become part of every office. I've said this before, that in income tax and in GST, using artificial intelligence, deep tech, we are able to detect and see the money trail where we need to chase. Physically, manually, without technology, it would have taken years for us to find the money trail. Whereas now, you go on this AI, you are able to get the entire web before you of who's going where, from where to where money is being sent, and so on. So if that is the case with income tax, that's the case also with rural technologies.
Yes.
So every department is today moving to use AI. Now, that's not displacing labor. It's creating more job opportunities. But job opportunities for those who are trained and skilled in AI. And that is why in this budget, you see that we are listing out ways in which we are going to bring in technology into schools, into colleges, so that they will be able to come out and be an entrepreneur or set up a business to say, you want some AI solutions, I can give you.
Sure.
We are doing that as a pilot now in 3 states at the ITI district level. Now we are upgrading all these district level ITIs with the central government's money and making sure that master trainers are sent to all the districts, students are brought in, they can have the AI training and therefore be ready for the market.
Thank you so much for taking so much time and answering all our questions. It was indeed a pleasure talking to you. Thank you and look forward to the next interaction.
Thank you very much.